Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Hi YouTube, hi podcast people. This is So Anyway, and let me do my quick opening. Hi, I'm Angela, I like anime. So anyway, let's talk about it. I know in the opening I literally just said I like anime, but today we're not talking about an anime. Ooh, scary. We're talking about a donghua, and for those of you who don't know, a donghua is just a Chinese animation. And I kind of put this in the description of my podcast anyway. I think I said wrote something along the lines of a podcast where I like talk about anime, but maybe other things, because I kind of knew that in the future I wanted to talk about maybe K dramas or American dramas or British dramas or um I don't know, maybe I'll even talk about manga and webtoons that I like and things like that, and J dramas, C dramas, and things like that. I just wanted this to be very open, but obviously a main focus on anime because I've watched a lot of anime and I haven't watched a lot of those other things. So I just want to be able to have a clear variety in my subject choice. But today we are talking about the donghua link click. And I was looking at the direct translation for it, but like as in direct translations, and you put it into like Google Translate, and this is what it comes up with. But not Google Translate. I looked at a couple different translation websites, but it directly translates to because that link click isn't the name in Mandarin. Um, for those of you who don't know, it's something along the lines of agent or attorney or representative. And now I'm going to go through a brief synopsis of link click. So then you can listen to it. If you want to watch it, stop, go watch it, and then come back or don't come back. If you've already seen it, then you can watch it. Link Click is about these two guys and a girl. The main character is called Chen Xiaoxi and his best friend Lu Guang and their friend Xiao Ling, who own a photography studio together. I'll just shorten their names to Zhao and Lu. And Zhao and Lu have this special ability where Zhao has the ability to go into a photo and like experience the put. So if somebody takes the photo, he can experience when that photo was taken, but only for 12 hours. And Lu Guang, when he looks at a photo, he has the ability to like gather information about it 12 hours after the photo was taken. So if you took a photo 10 years ago and you brought them a photo, they could basically like meddle around with the past 10 years ago. Obviously, this creates very interesting situations because it's like you're changing the past and things like that. And so interesting, guys. I actually implore you just to fucking watch it before you even like listen to the rest of this. But anyway, let me get on with this story and my thoughts and opinions on it. I'm going to try and be more coherent because I've noticed that sometimes I'm a bit scattery. But anyway, so I don't think I'm going to go. Should I go in order of arcs or should I go in order of. I'll just go in order of arcs. So we start with the beginning arc with this girl called Emma. And we get introduced obviously to our two main characters, or three if you include the girl, and their powers, because the girl doesn't have any powers. And you just kind of learn a bit about them and how one of the things Lu Guang says to him is along the lines of, do you remember the rules? And then he's like, yeah, I remember the rules. And then he's like, you can't change the past, something present, but we can help shape the future or something along those lines, which I think is very interesting because obviously this donghua likes to play with themes of time and images and photos, which I feel like are linked in my head, but I never really specifically like made the link between them because like photos capture like one specific moment in time and well, if we're trying to get philosophical, what really even is time? But let's not think about that. So then they go back into the past and they're basically trying to find information on the CEO who is doing illegal business activities. So they go back in time as his assistant and try and dig up information on him so they can basically get him into prison. Right? um, this is very interesting because it sets up the two main characters' like personalities. We see it later in the show, but I'll talk about their personalities here and now. So, from the show, you can tell that Xiao Shi has a very strong sense of justice. I hate using this word, but he's goofy and he's very passionate about what he does and how he does it. And that's further echoed in the story when we get to the earthquake bit and he really wants to save the people, but they're already dead, so he can't save them. Or later when spoiler, well, not spoiler alert, I really knew this was going to be a spoiler. When Emma is found out dead because something he changes in the past, he feels obviously immediately a strong sense of justice and wants to make it right. And even before he even knew it was Emma, he wanted to help the victims of the murder case regardless, and also he helped um the missing child despite him at the beginning of the like arc not feeling very well, which you could say is also an issue because you could say he's constantly very much neglecting his own feelings and only focusing on like other people. But Lu Guang, he's presented as this onto Lu Guang. Lu Guang is presented as this solitary, I always forget the word for it. Um Stoic? Yeah. I want to say stoic, but that kind of makes me sound heroic, and I don't know if you could call him heroic, but I don't. Anyway, the stoic character who kind of has a mentality of like, let's just let it be, let's just leave things alone, because if we do too much, then like something bad will happen. And he's not wrong, but it just almost feels like he doesn't have emotion, which is that's not how they portray him either. It's just at the beginning, I would say it almost feels like he doesn't have emotion. But as we go through the story, as Zhao Shi is hurting, he's literally there to comfort him, and he's always protecting him. That's the main point. Lu Guang, as much as he might not act it, is very protective over his friends. And we don't really get much of a backstory for Lu Guang in the donghua. Not really. We get like bits of Zhao Shi, like his parents abandoned him and are possibly dead or not. It really depends, but we know they definitely abandoned him, and he grew up with Xiaoling because her dad helped him out. And he has to repay the debt or something, but I think it's more of a joke rather than he actually has to repay the debt. Um, and things like that. But Lu Guang is quite the mystery. He's just kind of there. And you could say his ability is almost lesser than Xiaoxi because he can't physically go into the photos himself. But at the same time, we see throughout the donghua the times when they're not together and um how what's the word for it? How in disarray, yeah, how in disarray Xiaoxi Xiaoxi is when he doesn't have Lu Guang's voice in his ear. Another interesting thing is they play on age quite a bit. Like Lu Guang is younger than Xiaoxi, but he acts more mature than him and more sensible and more reasonable. But there are also times when Lu Guang acts, you could say acts his age. He like, or even younger than that. He basically buys everybody boba in the shop, and then gives it to Ling to give to Xiao Shi because he doesn't want to face him because they just had an argument and he kind of wants to keep a distance from it. And in that way, you could say he's quite childish because he doesn't directly confront his friend or his issue at hand. Now, if we're going, I've talked about the characters. There are obviously other characters, but those are the two main ones. I feel bad not talking about Ling, but personally, she doesn't get that much development in this season, and the teaser for the next season just came out. Well, it's a trailer, but it's basically a teaser for the next season just came out. So I'm hoping that she gets more development because I feel like she's only really there to aid the the development of the main characters. But I wouldn't say that she's like a love interest. Technically, you could say maybe she's a love interest for if you're calling Xiaoxi the main character, which I do. You could say that I mean, they're both equal. They're both on the poster, so you could say, well, who really is the main character? But I feel like a lot of the donghua is from the perspective of Xiaoxi, because obviously he goes back in time and he experiences like the lives of these people in their bodies, and you just hear Lu Guang's voice every now and again telling him what to do. Um, but I hope that Ling gets better development in season 2. Obviously, if you've seen it at the end of season 1, she stabs Lu Guang because she's possessed by the evil masked person in the story. So I hope that uh, she'll get more of a thought thing for herself. But I don't really see her as a love interest. Not really. She's just another character, in my opinion. But I feel bad calling her lesser. But she sort of is. Okay. So before I continue about the rest of the story, this is annoying, and I'm going to get annoyed at myself as soon as I have to edit this. But let's flipping put up a photo of. Actually, I would have already done it. I hope I would have already edited in the bit where when I say their names. I hope I edited in photos of them. But the flipping animation and how smooth and nice. This also leans into the attractiveness of the characters, which is what I was going to talk about. But the animation is so. If you've seen the opening or the ending, because this actually leads me into another point: the opening and the ending. These animators are skilled, and even though the fight scene at the end of season one is short, it was still so interesting, and like there are so many little details, which is why I suggest you guys to go and watch at Karu on YouTube or Karu on YouTube for his analysis of link click and what their theories are on it and what they um, had to say about the teaser, because I wasn't really going to talk about the teaser that much because I feel like there's a lot going on there and I can't digest it right now. But I remember watching it and I was screaming. It was so good. But back to the animation. The opening is done by, I can't say the beginning part because it's in Mandarin characters, but if you just type in Jaws and capital letters and links clicked, I'm really making editing hard for myself. Maybe I'll pop up a photo of the album cover and the band name. Then you'll find Dive Back in Time, which is the name of the opening, and it fits perfectly with the animation. And I love also another thing. I love the animation of the eyes. I think I have a big thing about eyes because one of my favorite animes is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, and the eyes are so big and colorful, and just not the fact that they're big, but the fact that there's like immense detail in the eyes. Although I'm not saying that I won't watch something, obviously, with like not detail in the eyes. Like take like Mob Psycho, for example. Again, it's one of my favorites. But the animation and the story thrives off it being quite flat. But obviously it has times when it's not flat. Same with like One Punch Man and stuff like that. But anyway, back to Link Click. I think the characters are really good looking and so is the animation, but there is obviously a lack of depth. They're all kind of pale and conventionally attractive, sort of, you could say. But I feel like that's the general issue with anime and donghua, just in general. There's like a lack of diversity. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it can't change. I'm just saying it's there because I have to point it out. And also diversity of other identities as well, and race. But anyway, um, oof. I would like to just also say that this isn't my first donghua that I watched. It's surprisingly it's my second or third, I think. One of my first ones that I watched was Daily Life of an Immortal King because people suggested it to you if you'd seen Psyche or One Punch Man or Mob Psycho, like all I forgot what the trope is called, but like just insanely strong main character. It was pretty good. I liked Daily Life of an Immortal King, although it was also quite frustrating. I feel like it was one of the most frustrating power things I'd watched because I thought One Punch Man, not it was annoying, it was just frustrating. But flipping, this topped it so much. But yeah, anyway, back to Link Clip. Another point is that Xiaoxi doesn't actually take on the physical, or he takes on like the bodily attributes. Like he looks like the person in the photo who took the photo, but he doesn't take on like their physical abilities, as in the basketball arc, the person who took the photo wears glasses, but like he's basically saying that now that he's in his body, he doesn't need the glasses anymore. Same with he still retains his strength when he goes into like the body of a child or the body of a woman. He's like still really strong. Mm-hmm. And anyway, another thing I'd like to point out on back to the Emma situation, and because it's quite cyclical, we start with Emma and we end with Emma. But Emma is actually called what's she called? Wu Li Hua. And I think this brings me into another point about sorry guys, I'm gonna throw in my GCSE geography, urbanization and things like that. Because a lot of the themes from the basketball arc to the old people arc and I don't know, I'm calling these arcs, what else can I call them? And the love drama and the like restaurant thing. Oh, I missed out the restaurant. Anyway, um, it's that like the dreams and then basically going to the city to pursue your dreams because it's the only thing that makes you feel like you can be successful is if you leave the place where you grew up and go to the city. And I think that's quite sad, but China, again, sorry, GCSE geography, is a newly emerging economy or an NEE, which means that a lot of their economy would probably rely on people coming from the countryside to go to work. Don't at me on this. I don't know too much about economics. Uh, I don't want no economic boys in my comment section being like, actually, da, 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 da. Sorry if I got it wrong. But I'm assuming a lot of their income would probably come from people from the countryside, whether educated or not, coming in and being a labor force, supplying it, whether it's like primary jobs or like quaternary or tertiary jobs. But they need that to develop their economy. And I feel like it's sad because when Emma changes her name from Wu Li Hua, I feel like to fit in with a more Western, modernized idea of society, as if her name, her birth given name, which is very beautiful, wasn't um wasn't good enough for the industry that she wanted to go into. To be honest, I can't even remember what industry she went into. Maybe but I don't really think it's important. It's just you get your classic business and office setting. But I think it's quite sad because I feel like the pressure is on quite a lot. She also felt the pressure because she said to her parents, I think in one scene, how when it was a flashback to when she was little, that she was going to grow up one day and like make a bunch of money for them. And sure, it's probably a nice feeling to be able to support your parents after they've supported you all your life, but it put so much pressure on her that she ended up taking like the dirty money from the CEO because she sort of knew that the CEO was doing bad things. And it led her down this like path that she didn't really want to take. But of course, I'm not trying to victim blame. It is primarily the CEO's fault for causing most of the issues that happened with her. So I guess small trigger warning for like sexual assault and suicide and manipulation and sort of just coercion because they made her drink at one point when she really didn't want to drink and stuff like that. But this show, or the donghua, because I always love to say the show that, love to tackle like a lot of issues. I think, um, I also think they handled them well because the character of Emma, I feel like, does represent the move from people living in the countryside to going into this city and the pressures that come with that. And it means she was going to commit suicide in the final episode. And then Xiaoxi like talking to her on the bridge and is all like, "Please, I have the quote for this." He's like, at the end of his whole monologue, basically trying to get her not to jump. He's like, "Eventually, we will meet people who shine their light onto us." And I think that's a beautiful reference to obviously his friends because he didn't have the most ideal childhood growing up. Yeah, he eventually found his people who would stick by him no matter what and support him. And he's gifting that hope to Emma so that she won't jump. And she obviously wasn't good. As soon as she heard that, she wasn't going to jump. But obviously, our evil villain guy possessed her and made her jump anyway, and she didn't want to. And I also think that scene is heartbreaking because, again, her life just lost. Although Lu Guang says something along the line, he always says something along the lines of death is a node that can't be changed. He has this idea that no matter what Zhao Shi does in the past to change it, as long as he doesn't change one of the big elements, which I'm assuming is what a node is, nothing will change. Nothing like significant will change. So he even Lu Guang loses his cool as soon as he hears that, because as soon as Emma wasn't going to die, because obviously at that point in time we knew that Emma was going to die. Right. Also, the click love they love their cliffhangers. Let's not start something at like, oh my gosh, I would have cried and I think I will cry when season 2 starts because every single episode is such a good cliffhanger. But I watched it when it was all out. I didn't see it when it was airing, but I was watching something else weekly at the time, so I didn't want to start something else. But I would have cried every single time an episode happened. If 'cause these cliffhangers are so good, the way they integrate the ending with the cliffhangers, and the ending is called Overthink. Again, maybe I'll try and put the thing on screen for the band who made Overthink. But it's just like I don't even know what the sound is. It's just like because it's like a I'm not even gonna try and recreate it, but it just goes perfectly with the angst and the angst. It's not call it that, the stakes that are like set up every single episode so that it ends perfectly on a point where you're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next episode? This is great. Well, anyway, I really like that. Generally, why do I think I liked Blink? Like, what was the thing that drew it to me? I think the poster, the animation, the art style. Um, the studio that released it is Bibli, and it was also released on Funimation. But I don't think there's like a there's a name for Chinese, like, no, I don't want to call it Chinese manga, but like written form of it. But I can't remember what it's called. But I don't think there's one of those. 'Cause I remember frantically searching for it as soon as I finished the donghua to see if I could find more, and I think it's an original animation, so you can't find it. Um, or there isn't one, not you can't find it. But why do I like this so much? I think I love to talk about this all the time, but characterization is like the two main characters and their chemistry and their energy, whether you ship them or whether you don't ship them, is what drew me like instantly to the story. And the way that they set like action and danger and stakes in the form of the cliffhangers and in the actual episodes themselves. Like there are lots of things like a silent voice and like flipping Sakamoto Deska um, that are good at characterization, but I think setting angst and action is really important. And this isn't necessarily like your Demon Slayer or your like flipping Naruto where they're gonna like fight um at every like other second. But at the same time it's important to set angst or else it will get boring. Like watching Link click every single episode, I was on the edge of my seat and I was never bored for even a single second, and it's because of how good the characterization is and how they set angst and like I don't want to say camera angles because this isn't really a camera, but you know what I mean? Like the way they position the animation and stuff like that. Also, back to the opening, tutting. I've literally found myself trying to flip in tut every single as I'm like walking around my house. It's like so hard. I never knew. I didn't think it was going to be easy, but at the same time, it's bad. And also, every single time the opening came on, I'd literally start screaming my heart out to it because it's like in English. Um, what do I got anything else? Oh, we have the entire mystery of Lue Min, yeah. And so the guy with blonde hair who's like paralyzed, and like how I said earlier how whenever Zhao Shi possesses somebody, he takes on their physical form, but not necessarily like their physical like attributes and qualities. So Lu Min is paralyzed. Like okay, he's like a rich daddy's boy, and oh my gosh, he annoys me so much because he's like acting like people who are less well off than him are the crazy people and are insane for like being mad at rich people. And I'm not gonna go into a whole rant about like capitalism and things like that because I don't know anything about capitalism. Yeah, not gonna be like I know stuff. I don't know that much, but all I know is that like capitalism like works on people exploiting the people at the bottom, and he is now yelling at the people at the bottom. And I think he does have his own malicious intent within him, which is why the actual villain, the masked person, chose to possess him in the first place because he knew he had resentment to like the people around him. So he was like an easy-ish person to possess because he wasn't going to resist it, right? Either way, well, Luhrmann just annoys me so much because it's like like okay, he had everything. He was rich and all the drinks, women, rich dad, stuff like that he could ever want, and he lost it in a car crash. But to be honest, we don't know the ins and out of that car crash. All that he knows is that he got paralyzed in a car crash. I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, but it could have easily been his fault that he got paralyzed no, that he got in a car crash. But either way, the way he's like insane on his own. And I don't want to use that word nicely, but like he's crazy. Like even when the villain isn't possessing him and he's getting interrogated by the policeman, he's like, "Oh yeah, I know this B word. I really enjoyed strangling her. So that it's like, all right, cool beans. And I don't know, he's just a bit weird. I don't know if he's going to be relevant in the next season because he did get arrested at the end of season one for the masked person's crimes. But at the same time, I don't think he's like completely innocent the way that Chowling is innocent because, oh my gosh, she didn't do anything. I'm actually a bit upset that she was basically forced to stab Lu Guang. But although if you look at all the posters and the official art, it's kind of hinted at that she was going to stab him in the first place. At least I think it's official art. It might not be. It might just be fan art and people like making um, things that make it look like she was going to stab him. Either way, um, I think that I'm trying to don't at me on this, guys. I'm trying to look for things. Oh, the fact that it's called like the fact that the show is like directly translated to agent and attorney comes in handy because on the topic of Louis Min, he talks about how I'm just an agent and it's his friend who's doing everything, and his friend is like the masked person who's possessing him. But the I'm just an agent, I think, very much links to the name of the shop, and I think the name of the shop has something to do with that as well. And the name of the show, obviously. I just wonder why whoever chose to translated it as Link Click, because I do think that that's also a really good title as well, because it's really punchy. It's really just like Link Click and Link. You could say Lu Guang and Zhao Shi are like linked whenever they go into a photo, and Click as in like the shutters on the camera. Like it just feels smooth, quite perfect. I know I didn't talk about a lot of things like uh Shu Shan and her that whole thing, and I didn't really talk about the missing son arc, and I didn't really talk about like the basketball. I didn't really go into depth with these arcs the way I have in like other episodes, but I think it was more important to get the general idea of the show across. Um oh, and the Detective Shao. Like I would add him to like the three people I sort of like the most, but not a but it's just like he doesn't really show up until the end half of the show, so I didn't gain that much of a not connection attachment to him. But I feel like he'll be featured way more in season two as well, so I'm very excited for that. I'm also excited to see if they bring out any new characters, anything like that. But I do like the way that I need to come up with new vocabulary. I like this. This is good. This is da da da. But anyway, um, the way they basically just talk about regret, and I feel like the main message of of Link Click is basically, in a way, there'll always be people to help you, and you'll meet somebody who'll shine a light on you, but also a feeling of regret and like not doing something that you should have done or you should have said. A lot of yeah, you should have said, because even in the basketball arc, the client wants to tell his dead mother and friends and everything else the what he didn't really get to say to them, which is what Lu Wang interestingly was talking to Xiao Shi about. He was like, "We don't. I do this so that so the living can be comforted, knowing that their words got to reach the dead, right? So we don't even if we don't do things that we were supposed to do now, I think the main message of Link Click is that we should do and we should say the things that we want to do before it's too late, because a there'll always be a time when it's too late, and I feel like no matter what, everybody will have regrets, but just make sure you don't have that like as many regrets. Like reduce the amount of regrets you have, right? And it also tackles the issues of like earthquakes and natural disasters, because if you couldn't tell by my accent, ha ha ha, in the UK. The UK is not very susceptible to natural disasters. We've got it pretty good over here. The worst we might get is like some high winds. Like it's been windy lately, guys. Um, or we might get like some heavy rain or some heavy rain and flooding and stuff like that. But that has no weight to like earthquakes and like tsunamis and volcanic eruptions and stuff like that. Like that would be terrifying. And I don't even think I mean people who probably live in like natural disaster prone areas are probably used to it. But if you look at all the time the West can get very desensitized from these topics because it's like we don't experience it. So it's like so it's like almost why should we care? Which I think is very, I don't like it. So I do like the fact that they brought in the tragedy and the devastation of earthquakes and things like that because it really, I mean, it brought it to life and not to life because I already studied GC. I'm sorry, I'm literally going to plot this in every single chance I get. I actually studied GCSE geography, so we have to learn about like earthquakes and natural disasters and hazards. So I kind of already see the devastation we do, but more on a technical term than an emotional way. So I did enjoy Link Click for showing us the emotional side of natural disaster episodes. This is going to sound a bit skitty, but I'm going to mention the voice actors the voice actor for Cheng Xiaoxi is Su Shangqing, and the voice actor for Liu Guang is Yang. I'm going to have to spell out this next bit. I'm actually making this editing a task for myself, but maybe I'll put it on screen. Maybe. Tiaxiange. That's the voice actor for Liu Guang. Yang, and then the spelling. But nevertheless, I really enjoyed Link Click for my favorite word of the day, not even of the day, of these podcast episodes. Characterization, I feel like there's a better word for it than stakes. The drama that they build, the I guess supernatural element, if you call it supernatural, and generally just a really good animation style and art style. I really enjoyed it. Well, thank you guys for listening so much. I'll put my podcast on YouTube because I've now got the YouTube up. I'll put it on Spotify. Obviously, it goes on Apple Podcasts, stuff like that. And I'll try and put my credits. There'll be an end screen probably on the YouTube. Like and comment and subscribe. For more content, comment, see what I can do better, things you want me to cover next, things like that. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Have a great day, week, month, year, and life. So anyway, bye.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.